This lesson will be relatively brief. I'm going to show you how you can warp 3D text. That is, you can take regular text, extrude it, and then warp it. And if you want to warp it again, you may. I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. One I think is the standard way, which is a little circuitous, and one is a more direct way. And in both instances, something can go wrong. If you push the warp a little bit too far, things can kind of go downhill fast. So I'm going to show you what happens when you do that as well. So to follow along, go to Photoshop and start that up. Let's make a new document, File, New, select this one here, add some text. I've got the Type tool selected, put in some text here. I'm going to aim a little high here on purpose, just to show you how it works when you're a little bit high on the screen here. Warped, why not, right? And I'm going to move that over with the V key and slide it over a bit like that. Now I'm going to go get the 3D panel open, select 3D extrusion, and click on Create. And there's our text in 3D space. Let me lower the ground plane here so you can see it in a more normal fashion. There we go. We're kind of comfortable working with 3D text. All right, now I want to warp this text. The way I do that is I make it active over here in the 3D panel, and I go down to its Properties panel at the bottom here where it says Edit Source. And now you see the text is active. The cursor is blinking in the front of it. It's underlined like that. And when it's active like that, the button that takes you to the Warp Text dialog box is active. I click on that, and there we go. Let's warp it. Go down here to Arc, for example. Warps it right away. We click OK. Now we need to accept this. So I press the Enter key on the numeric keypad or click on this check mark there. And now I need to save this. Now I could go File, Save. That's one way to do it, but I can just click this X to close this little PSB file. This is the source for the 3D text. Click on that to close it. It'll say, you want to save it? And say, yes, I want to save that. And there we are. It's warped text. Very straightforward. Let me show you a more direct route to do this with your text active here in the 3D panel. And the Type tool selected down here, then the little button that takes you to the Warp Text dialog box is also active. So just click on that, and now you can just see this in real time. We're going to go down here, let's say we'll go to Flag. And there it is. Click OK, and we're done. No need to commit and then save. It's just real time, which is pretty darn convenient. So now let me show you something that can go wrong. I'm going to go back to the regular route that we used first by going down here to Edit Source. I'm going to then open up the Warp Text dialog box here. And let me change this to something else. We'll go to Arch, for example. I'm going to make the bend a little bit larger, a little more dramatic. I'm going to start distorting it fairly dramatically. Everything seems to be working fine. I'll take it all the way to the end here, make it really distorted. Click OK. And now I'm going to accept that. I'll commit to that. Everything looks fine so far. I'll save this by clicking the X, saying Save, and let's see what happens. Nothing. It didn't change. Which can be a little surprising. You're going to go, wait, I did all that work. It looked fine. I saved it, and nothing happened. What's happening internally, what you're not being told, is that Photoshop is rejecting your work because it's too complicated. It's just too much to do. It's too hard to turn that distorted thing into a 3D object, so it just rejects it. Let's take that more direct route. I've got the Type tool selected. I've got this thing selected over here inside the 3D panel. I'm going to click on this directly like that. We're going to see our work now. I'm going to bend it up a lot here, let's say. I'm going to change the distortion some more here. At some point, let's see what happens here, if it gets too distorted or not. Okay, let's change it to another one. Let's go to Arch, for example. And now it says, sorry, could not complete your request because the path is too complex. And if that were all it told you, it would be fine. But sometimes when this happens, Photoshop crashes. Let's see what happens here. I'll click OK. I'll close this down. All right, let's try it one more time here. Got this guy active, go up here, click on this tool again. Let's change to another one. Let's say, go down to Fish. We'll just twist the heck out of it here. And now it's crashed. And this can happen if you push the Warp Text dialog box too far. If you do it this direct route, it can crash. If you do it the indirect route, it just doesn't do anything for you. So do take some care when you work with the Warp Text dialog box. You might want to save your work before you work on warp text. And then if you make changes, then nothing happens if you take that sort of indirect route. You just know that you just push things too far. And if you take this direct route and push things kind of hard, it could very well crash Photoshop. Now, Photoshop is pretty good at recovering files that were lost during a crash, but nevertheless, you probably should save your work before you start warping the 3D text.